Hi friends. I don't know about you, but I am really starting to miss being around the people that I care about, like you and my family. It's hard to be away from the people that we care about. Today, we're going to hear about a man who had a condition called leprosy. And like coronavirus, people were afraid of catching leprosy, and so this man had to stay away from his family and friends. But Jesus helped him. And Jesus' power helps us when we are lonely too. So, just gonna need a few supplies for today. What you're gonna need is a container that seals, like a bottle, but just make sure something that seals. I have a little milk bottle. Then you're gonna need some water in that milk bottle, and I colored mine blue just so you could see it better on the video. And then you're also gonna need some oil. So I'm gonna pause the video while you grab a bottle or some type of container that seals, some water for that, and also the oil. So let's pause while you go get those things. All right, so hopefully you were able to get those things. Now, before we get started, let's talk about our God sightings for the week. Where did you see God at work this past week? For me, it was on Earth Day, where people were safely going out, or they were just doing their part to help take care of the earth. So let's pause the video and share with each other where you saw God at work this week. So even with all those great things, those God sightings that God is doing now, there are still a lot of hard things too. And I wonder, what's the hardest thing for you about this whole coronavirus situation? For me, it's just hearing about people who are having a hard time and I guess wanting to help them, but not knowing quite sure what to do or how to be a helper. So why don't you pause the video again and share with your family about what's been hard for you. One of the hardest things for many people has been not being able to see friends and their extended family. For me, I do miss not seeing all my friends and not seeing all of you, and I can't wait until we can do that again. So let's pause the video and let's share what's been hard and who we miss. So let's pause the video for that. So being separated from the people we care about can make us feel lonely, but Jesus' power helps us when we're lonely. Let's hear about how Jesus helped a man in the Bible who was probably very lonely. Back in Bible times, there was a disease called leprosy, which we talked a little bit about earlier. If you got it, you'd get painful sores all over your body, and there was no cure, and often people would either die or lose fingers and toes. People, they were afraid of catching it, much like people are afraid of catching the coronavirus right now. So what are some things that we're supposed to do right now to avoid catching coronavirus? Let's pause the video in a second and list as many things as you can. Okay, so what are some things we're supposed to do right now to avoid catching coronavirus? Ready? All right, so some of the things we can do is wash our hands for 20 seconds or sing the ABC song, and that should be about 20 seconds so we can wash our hands really well. Another thing we're supposed to do is we're supposed to stay safe at home to help keep us from catching the coronavirus. Now, people in Bible times, they knew all about social distancing. In fact, they were so afraid of catching leprosy, it was against the law for someone with leprosy to even come into the city. And if someone with leprosy was around other people, they had to call out, "Unclean, unclean." So everyone around would know to stay away. No one wanted to accidentally touch someone with leprosy. Now, all those rules must have made people who had leprosy feel really lonely. So let's try something. Let's stand up And then I want you all to spread out. I want you to take 5 good steps. Make sure there's at least 5 good steps in between each of you. Okay? So now stay there, stay in place, and try to hug someone in your family. Remember, don't lean in or get closer. Stand right there. So try to hug. You can't, unless you have really long arms, you're not even going to be able to touch anybody. No hugs. No pats on the back. Just you in your own little bubble. So here's a question for you to talk about. How do you think it would feel to have to be this far apart from everyone for years? Now let's pause the video and talk about that. So it could be pretty lonely to not be close enough to hug anyone for a very long time. But let's see what Jesus did when he met someone who had leprosy. If you want to follow along in your Bible, you can look up Matthew 8, verses 1 through 3. That's Matthew 8, verses 1 through 3. So while Jesus walked along, a man with leprosy came out of the crowd. The man knew that Jesus had the power to heal him. And he said to Jesus, "Lord, if you are willing, you can heal me and make me clean." Jesus reached his hand out and he touched the man and answered, "I am willing, be healed." And the man was healed instantly. Wait, did you hear that? Let me say it again. Jesus touched the man. This man probably hadn't had a hug or a pat on the back or anyone touch him for a long time. Then Jesus touched him. Jesus, he wasn't afraid of getting leprosy. Jesus knew his power was greater than any disease, leprosy or coronavirus. Jesus knew that not only did this man's body need healing, his heart needed healing too. This man needed to feel Jesus' love right there on his arm or his shoulder or his head. He needed a loving touch to heal his loneliness. Now, we need to be wise and protect ourselves from this sickness right now. But being separated can make us feel lonely. Now, pause me again and talk about these questions. Who do you know that might be feeling lonely right now? And how could you reach out to them? So let's pause the video while you talk about that. Thanks for sharing with each other. We can reach out to help others when they're lonely. But even when no one else is around, Jesus' power helps us when we're lonely. He's right there with us to comfort us and to heal our hearts. So now we're going to work with some science fun, and we're going to get out our oil and our water. So the people in Jesus' time didn't want people with leprosy mixing in with anyone else. I have a mix it up science project experiment that we can try to use to help us think more about that. So it's time to get your oil and your clear container with the water in it. Science fun. All right. So I'm not sure if you can see my little table that I have, but I will make sure that you can see when I mix it. So I'm going to pour some oil into my bottle. And we're going to see what happens when we put the oil with the water. And you can do this too. So I'm just going to pour it in there. And then what I'm going to do, you can see that it's separate. I'm going to screw on the lid. And just to be extra safe, because I put food coloring in my water, I have a washcloth that I'm going to use, and I'm going to shake it up. And I'm going to mix up my water and my oil. All right. And if you can't shake it, if you don't have a lid, you could always try just stirring it. All right. So there it is. It's all kind of mixed in together. Now we're going to give that a little bit of time and see what happens as everything settles. So now while we're waiting for our mixture to settle down, let's talk about this with our family. What do you miss most? What do you miss most because you're separated from others right now? What do you miss the most? So let's pause. All right, did everybody have a chance to kind of talk about the things you miss the most right now as we're separated from each other? Okay, good. So back to our science project. I'm going to hold up my bottle. So as it's settling, it doesn't look like the oil and the water are really mixed. It seems like they want to stay separate. I think they are practicing social distancing. Now, oil and water naturally want to stay separate, but it's not so natural for us. Being separated from others can make us feel lonely, but we can turn to Jesus for help because Jesus's power helps us when we're lonely. So even though we're separated a lot from our friends, we still have our family here with us, and we can still connect with people online like this and even do online faith formation together. If it's healthy for you, go ahead and gather with your family for a nice group hug. And if it's not safe to hug someone right now, try giving a long distance hug like this. We call these air hugs in my family. So just reach out to let somebody know that you want to hug them, and you would if you could. And remember to thank Jesus for each person in your family by name. Ready? Pause. Focusing on the people that Jesus has put in our lives, even in this hard time, can help us feel less alone. That's one way that Jesus' power helps us even when we're lonely. So when the video ends, get out your thankfulness journal and draw a picture of someone that you're thankful that you can connect with during this time, either in person or online. Put today's date or the date that you draw it, because it might not be today, and keep adding to your journal as well as your God sightings where you've seen God at work. So take care and see you next week.